And if I might, any of your listeners who like what I have to say about natural resources can personalize it. Go to my website, ruleinvestmentmedia.com, list your natural resource stocks, and I will personally rank them 1 to 10, 1 being best, 10 being worst. I'll comment on individual issues if I think my comments might have value. It's absolutely free. Ruleinvestmentmedia.com, list your natural resource stocks. I personally will rank them, and I will send you information about the conference.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Radio Show, and today, not coming to you from Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm coming from a place called Gainesville, Texas. And I'm a very special guest to them. This guy is the godfather right now. His name is Rick Rule. And every time I see him, I'm in awe of how much I learned from him. And he's extremely respected in the mining field, gold and silver. My partner, Marin Katusa out of Vancouver, speaks so highly of Rick. And I last saw Rick, I think, in Rebel Capitalist, and now I meet you here. And Rick, it's an honor to have you on the Rich Dad Show. So thank you.
Well, my honor, Robert. I'm a huge fan of that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Before we went on the air, I said I sort of think it is the obligation of old folks like you and I to prepare the younger generation, to teach them for the mess that we're leaving them in terms of the economy and the political economy. So thank you so much for just talking common sense to young folks.
Thank you. Have you seen Lawrence Laparte's book, The Big Print?
I have. I have. Your book is more accessible. People should read your book before they read that book, okay. But it's important. It's an important part of the continuum.
Yeah. So just the reason Rick is so important is because I think with 65, I was holding up a $50, and it was no longer silver, it was copper. And as the Mexicans say, ¿Qué pasa? What are they doing? And that was Gresham's Law. And then in 71, I was a Marine helicopter pilot, and we were flying out of Vietnam. And I went to buy gold behind enemy lines, proving Marines aren't the smartest guy on earth. And I walked up to I was behind enemy lines. Rick, we disarmed, my co-pilot and I. We put our hands up and walked through the village. And we said, we don't come as Marines, we come as capitalists. We just want to buy some gold. And we walked up to this little bamboo shack. And those little Vietnamese women, and their teeth were bright red because they eat betel nuts. And gold, they had just taken gold off the gold standard. It was going from 35 to 50. So I thought I could get a discount. And I got schooled, Rick. She schooled me. She goes, spot. I'm like, tell Spot. And she goes, spot. So I didn't get any gold that day. But also, but you learn a lot when you start doing stupid things. I went to Hong Kong and I bought my first Krugerrand from South Africa. And then I found out I had to smuggle it into the States. I mean, could you imagine that, Rick? I mean, that's how old I am. Gold was illegal for Americans to own. And then the last thing, Rick, I was coming out of Japan not too long ago, and they didn't care if I was carrying fentanyl. They wanted to know if I was carrying any gold. So it was a long way to introduce my friend Rick Rule here. He's a guy I look to when it comes to information and advice and trends in the marketplace. So welcome to the Rich Dad Radio Show, Rick.
Pleasure to be with you, as I say. It's those anecdotes are interesting because there are so many lessons there. The universal appeal of gold as a medium of exchange that's similarly a store of value. Buy it in Hong Kong, buy it what was behind enemy lines. In Vietnam, I've bought it on the Venezuelan-Brazilian border. The same circumstance. They knew spot particularly well. A different lesson is that you think your government wants you to be free and be happy. unless you bring a competing currency into the realm, in which case you're a criminal and a
That's
traitor.
correct.
Many lessons in the story you just told, Robert, if you view those lessons from the right prism. I spend a lot of time in my declining years explaining, as you do, the efficacy of owning precious metals to young people. JP Morgan Chase, as an example, suggests that precious metals comprise less than 0.5% of the total savings and investment assets of Americans, down, by the way, from a 4-decade mean of 2%. The first lesson there is that if the rest of the things we talk about for the rest of our interview come to pass, it is likely that the market share of gold at least reverts to mean or perhaps overshoots. I'd like your audience to first of all think about what a fourfold increase in demand would do to price. I'm not smart enough to give you the answer to that, but I leave it to you to use your imagination, understanding that prices are set on the delta between supply and demand. Imagine the potential impact of a fourfold increase, which is merely a reversion to mean. Interesting points to ponder.
When you say reversion to mean, what does that mean to the average person?
JP Morgan Chase suggests that over the last 4 decades, the median or mean market share of precious metals and precious metals related securities relative to all other asset classes was 2%. Now it's 0.5%. So if gold gained enough favor merely to return to its average market share over the last 4 decades, demand for the stuff would grow fourfold.
Right. And J.P. Morgan was a guy. Correct me if I'm wrong. He says, "Gold is money; everything else is credit." And then again, when the reversion to mean, the average person, what does it mean? Credit. It means debt.
That's
And
correct.
that's what happened in 71 when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. I went, what the hell is he doing? And the U.S. Treasury with a bond became as good as gold. And that caused one of the biggest hyperinflations in history. So Rick and I are these gold bugs who are still in the dark ages. But gold is money. So I put silver in that category because silver was money before gold, I believe, and all this. And like I said, in 65, I'm holding up a $0.50 with Kennedy on it going, why is it copper? Do you know what I mean? Why is it copper?
Well, counterfeiting goes back at least as far as Denarius. It's important to recognize that. It's just that government technology is getting better. Now they counterfeit 100% of the value of the currency. There was a time when they clipped the edges or they changed the alloy. But governments are much more efficient than they used to be. They steal wholesale as opposed to retail now. If you look at the other promise today, which is to say a U.S. dollar, literally, it used to be a package of dreams painted on a piece of paper. Now it's a packet of dreams clicked into existence. And it's really important, I think, that people know that. Not that the dollar will cease to function as a medium of exchange, but it's an increasingly inefficient medium of exchange if you also ask it to be a store of value, Robert, as you know, but many people don't. It's interesting that you talk about all other forms of exchange as debt, because I think for Americans, debt is the concept that will lead to the best understanding of gold. At the Rebel Capitalist Conference, Gorman's conference, I talked about the math of America. I talked about the fact that our on-balance sheet liabilities exceed $37 trillion, which is now, 120% of GDP?
Right.
In 1982, to put a large number in context, on balance sheet liabilities were only 32% of GDP. So we've gone from 32% of GDP to almost 130% of GDP.
So Rick, with
Yep.
all your experience, what does that mean to you? Like when somebody says it's 120% of GDP, and there was Rogoff, Reinhardt, and all that stuff, but the average American, you must be speaking Chinese right now.
The average American should read this wonderful Churchill quote. Not Churchill, I'm sorry, Hemingway quote. They were asked how he went broke when he had all that income. And he said, slowly at first, then all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's important for the average American to note, too, and almost none of them pay attention to this, that the bigger problem, rather than the on-balance sheet debt, is the net present value of unfunded entitlements. Look at you and I on the screen, Robert. We're poster boys for this. Medicare, Medicaid, military pension in your case, not mine, federal government pension. It is estimated by the Congressional Budget Office, not some cranky old libertarian, Rick Rule, but the Congressional Budget Office. It's estimated that the net present value of unfunded entitlement programs exceeds $100 trillion. Now, again, this number in 1982 was about 90% of GDP. Now this number is 350% of GDP. And the math gets a little worse, Robert. I really want your listeners, I know math is boring, but I want your listeners to listen to this. The IRS estimates that the private net worth, the aggregate private net worth of all Americans, is about $141 trillion. And if you add the on-balance sheet debt of the U.S. government with the unfunded off-balance sheet debt of the U.S. government, that number is 130 trillion. So you take what we're worth, 141, minus what we owe, 130, there's only 11 trillion left over. Now, how do we get out of this? What I figure we do is we preside over the devaluation of the U.S. currency. We have a dishonest default. And that's where gold comes in. Gold for decades, for millennium, has been a medium of exchange that's simultaneously a store of value. It's been a place that you go when you don't trust government debt.
Right.
And the math suggests that this is a wonderful time not to trust government debt.
That's why most gold guys are pessimists. But anyway, the good news is, and by the way, congratulations on your symposium, Rick Rule's Symposium. I've heard wonderful things about it. And you're playing to a tough audience. But the good news is, Rick, more and more people are listening to you. Do you know what I mean? It's good news. So that's why you're so successful putting on these events and speaking to the masses about what real money is. So congratulations on your thing there.
Well, we'd love to improve the conference next year with the presence of Robert Kiyosaki. So keep that in mind.
I would be honored. But anyway, this is my point of view. This could be the best opportunity to get rich. I mean, as the dollar comes down and all fiat, fake money, the Japanese yen, the peso, the euro comes down, this could be the biggest opportunity you'll ever have to get rich quick. But you've got to get out of fake money and go to Rick Rule's conference. So we come back, we'll be going more into financial education. But I'm the eternal optimist because I've been saving gold and silver for years and getting no respect, Rick. No respect. And they kept saying, why don't you invest in the S&P 500? I said, I do have a conscience. Anyway, so we come back, we'll have more with Rick Rule and more about how this is the best opportunity. If you ever want to get rich quick, this is it. We'll be right back.
Is the end near? Yeah, I think it is. For decades now, I've watched the Fed, the banks, and the government play games with our money. They print trillions, devalue the dollar, steal your wealth through inflation, and tax away the rest. And behind the scenes, they've been selling gold and silver forward just to keep prices down, to keep you asleep. But the con is falling apart, and when it breaks, silver won't just go up, it could explode. I've been preparing for this since 1965, and I believe the reckoning could hit by September. Silver is still one of the most undervalued assets on Earth. It's essential to electric vehicles, solar, AI, water tech, even military systems. But here's the problem. Supply is disappearing. Meanwhile, demand is surging. That's why I believe silver could double, or even 5x this year. But don't expect to hear that on CNBC. They want you chasing fake assets, trusting Wall Street, praying the Fed will save you. Don't fall for it. If you want to build real wealth, think like an entrepreneur. Own real assets. Yes, I like gold. I own gold, but right now, silver is the best investment in the world. If you're serious about silver, here's what I recommend. Text the word silver to 24999. You'll get my brand new 2025 Rich Dad's Guide to Silver, free from my friends at Priority Gold. Inside, I break it all down. What's really driving silver, why it's still dirt cheap, and how to buy smart before the next big move. Look, the system isn't going to fix itself. Take control. Start now. Text silver to 24999 and claim your free guide while silver is still cheap. That's silver to 24999.
I'm Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And today really is about the good news and bad news about money. The U.S. dollar is fake. I wrote my big book called Fake. Fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. And America was sold a bill of goods in 65 when they took silver out of our silver coins. And in 71 when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. So our guest today is Rick Bull, a man I have tremendous respect for. And I'm so happy to hear your investment conference is still making waves out there, Rick. But also is to be an optimist. As Andy Schectman says, how much is a trillion? And most people don't know, And a trillion, according to Andy, says if you spent $1 a second, it would take you 32,688 years to spend $1 trillion. And we do it now with a click of a mouse, a trillion. So Rick's conference is the place to go. And so that's why I help him promote it for next year for him. Because more and more people getting educated is the way. It's the biggest opportunity possible. You want to get rich quick. I share from gold to gold and silver, and I'm a Bitcoin fanatic also. But anything outside of the dollar. So Rick, please tell us about how your conference and where it's at next year and all this stuff.
Well, the audience is growing fairly well. As you know, Robert, this conference has been going on a long time. I used to run it for Agora Publishing almost 30 years ago.
Right. Really?
It's been in continuous operation. Some people tell me 30 years. I can't remember, to be honest with you. But the year-on-year attendance growth is very good. And the customer satisfaction is very good, too.
Yeah. Unlike
any other investment conference that I know of in the world, we offer all of our attendees a no questions asked money-back guarantee. In other words, if you come to the conference, either live or live stream, and you don't think we give you your money's worth, we give you your money back. And you don't have to tell us why. Just say, you know what? I don't think I got my money's worth. I give you your money back. I tell you this because we had over 600 paid live attendees and over 1,400 online live stream attendees. So over 2,000 people, and thus far, 2 people, 0.1%, have asked for their refund. So I would assume that a 0.2% response to an unconditional money-back guarantee means that customer satisfaction was very high. In terms of spreading the message,
they also work for the Federal Reserve Bank, so that's why they want their money back.
I don't want to cast aspersions on them. For whatever reason, they say we failed them, both of them. The message is spreading. I think it's important to note that the 2024 conference had about 400 live attendees. This had 600 live attendees. The 2024 conference had 670 live stream attendees. This one had almost 1,500 live stream attendees. And those growth statistics are reflected elsewhere in my database. The Rule Investment Management subscriber database now exceeds 92,000 double opt-in subscribers, and 14,000 people are regular attendees to the Rule Classroom. So the audience around precious metals and natural resources is expanding. The other interesting thing that happens, Robert, and you know this for years serving this community, for years the community looked like me, old, bald, fat, white, rich,
Yeah.
The demographic is getting much more young. It's getting much more international. There were attendees from 33 countries at the conference this year via live streams.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, the new subscribers to our services are 30% female. We have never seen young women in the gold space, but we're seeing young women come into contrarian investing, contrarian securities, precious metals, and natural resources from an international base in really, truly unheralded levels. I've never seen anything like this.
Right. But the thing is, this to be very optimistic, if you ever wanted to get rich quick, don't miss this boat. Do you know what I mean? It's shoving off right now. And if you're still saving fiat or fake money, like I hate to say this being Japanese, Japanese, they save cash and they love cash. And I've always saved gold and silver. And I just, once I understood what Nixon was doing and what Johnson took the silver out of our coins, I said, why would you save fiat, fake money? And that was kind of my wake-up call. And I've gotten very rich just because I don't save cash. I save gold and silver. And that's the difference.
I think the demonstration of that isn't just this last year where gold has done well. People on shows like this for a long time asked me when gold was going to move. And I'd scratch my chin sagely, Robert, and I'd say, well, I think gold's going to move in the year 2000. It's up 9% compounded for 25 years. Gold is two things. Gold is about not getting poor slowly. And if you're aggressive, and if you can afford to be aggressive in silver, which tends to outpace gold when a bull market really truly gets underway, and if you're willing to work hard and invest in the gold stocks or silver stocks, which tend to even outpace the metal, albeit with much greater risk and much greater volatility. What you say is very, very, very true. Anybody who looks at the graph of the XAU or any of the gold and silver indexes understands that when you move into a real precious metals bull market, the upside volatility is unlike almost any other financial market on the planet.
Well, it's exactly as you said. How do you get poor? Slowly at first and then suddenly. Well, it works the other way too. I hate to say this. I'm going to say something very sacrilegious, Rick. I sold 4.5 million in gold, but my basis cost was 300.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Right. And I paid cash for my house. So I walked into this house. I said, I'll take it. And my gold is stored in a place called Liechtenstein because I don't want to be in 1933 again where they take my gold.
Right.
So I just walked in and I said, so I paid 4.5 million. My basis is 450,000.
Right.
Just because of when I bought it. And your date is exactly correct. It was 2000. Do you know what I mean?
Hugely important lesson. But one of the things I do is I maintain an alternative statement of account as a thought exercise, and I have since the year 2000, measuring my income, my net worth, and my expenses in both gold and dollars. And if you do that, what you're struck by is how cheap food is, how cheap gasoline is. Yeah. If you measure it in the golden constant, price of gold was at $250, $255 an ounce in 2000. You're astonished by the difference in value between your gold savings and your dollar savings.
Yeah, today gold is $3,400, and in 2000 it was about 300.
Right.
And then today silver is about 38. I remember it was $1 or something. And you know, and so let's finish up because what's the definition of a liar? It's a gold prospector standing next to a hole. And you know, I've taken companies public. I took a silver mine public, and then we sold it to Yamada. And then I took a gold mine public in China. I took it on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And guess what? The Chinese nationalized it.
Right.
So I don't eat Chinese food anymore. You know what I mean? But Rick, I found out the hard way what the word country risk means. You know what I mean? If you don't do business in countries where they don't respect the rule of law.
Right.
You know, it's very simple. And then I took a gold mine public with Baron Katusa in Salt Lake City, and I felt a lot happier because we're on American soil. You know?
Well, I need to say it depends on where in American soil. The biggest single experience. Biggest single experience with political risk that I've ever had personally was discovering a mine that went under produce 2 million ounces of gold. Sadly, in the People's Republic of California, 7 miles on the wrong side of the California-Nevada line.
Yeah.
And that was an experience I will never forget. I've actually personally been treated better in Congo than California. Basically, I agree with you about the American concept of the rule of law, but I would prefer myself to be in Texas, Wyoming, Nevada, or Alaska as opposed to the other states.
Well, that's why it's the Rural Investment Conference. And the thing I loved about your conference is that you have real people there. You know, you don't have a bunch of fund managers.
It'll be a pleasure to have you there.
I'd be honored. I mean, I love it. I love it.
Fantastic.
Because I've been Rick, I was one of those guys, you know, the putzing around, talking to the miners and all this. I think nothing.
Right.
But that's how I learned. I talked to the miners. And last thing I want to ask you is that people are talking about silver now, your opinion on that. But also, isn't there, this is what I understand, gold goes first, then silver, then the miners. I mean, it's something like that. Is that the sequence or order of fire?
My experience, Robert, is that precious metals bull markets are led by gold. They're led by physical, and they're led by fear buyers.
Yeah.
They're led by people.
Pessimists.
Maybe pessimists, maybe not. Just people who don't like the arithmetic of fiat currency denominated securities. I'm one of them.
Yeah, me too.
When the momentum in the bullion begins to expand the producer's margins, the big gold stocks move next. And we've seen that. Franco, Wheaton, Agnico Eagle, they've all doubled in 12 months. At some point in time, that movement, that momentum attracts the generalist investor into the gold space.
Yeah.
And the gold space is so small, it can't accommodate the money. When that happens, leadership goes from gold to silver. And by the way, you will not need Robert Kiyosaki or Rick Rule to tell you when that happened.
No.
It's a truly, truly, truly dramatic event. And then the end of the precious metals bull market is when the money trickles down into the junior miners and the junior producers. And those moves are truly insane. Playing it requires a lot of education. It requires a lot of discipline. I would suggest that probably 85% of the junior miners are valueless. But that 15%, they generate such robust performance that they had legitimacy and even luster to a very rough sector. You described the chain perfectly. Silver will come after when the generalist money comes out of the space. Our mutual friend, Doug Casey, described that event, the generalist money coming into the silver market, as attempting to siphon Hoover Dam through a garden hose.
He has a way with words, doesn't he?
He does.
But the other thing is that isn't there a shortage of silver? That's what I keep hearing, the LBMA, London Bullion, They're actually taking delivery of that stuff.
I would argue that the shortage is really about the fact that there's too many paper contracts.
Yes,
The
that's what.
futures markets, the futures markets many days trade 200 times the amount of silver available for good delivery within 90 days.
Well,
Uh,
what
that's a
Rick is,
really, really leveraged market. And if you really begin to change the balance between the futures market and the spot market, and I'm not saying that'll happen or it won't
yeah.
happen, that's what the shortage is all about.
What
Right now, there's
wasn't J.P.
plenty.
Morgan wasn't J.P. Morgan fined for playing games with silver?
People say that the markets are manipulated. All markets are manipulated. It's just that the silver market is so skinny that uh, the potential penalty, I don't mean governmental penalty, I mean market penalty for
Yeah.
manipulation is extremely high. I remember in the decade of the 70s when silver markets were manipulated up because that was the easiest way to manipulate them. And I suspect that trading desks will do that again. Um, JP
I,
Morgan amongst them.
I remember. I remember the Hunt brothers.
Sure.
Silver went to $50, and then gold went to
Sure.
700.
Yep.
I thought it was Midas or Donald Trump or something. Jeez, I'm a genius.
I remember that with pleasure.
Yeah. So let's please unabashedly promote your symposium, and I highly recommend people going there and speaking to real people, not a fund manager. So please promote your event for next year.
And if I might, any of your listeners who like what I have to say about natural resources can personalize it. Go to my website, ruleinvestmentmedia.com, list your natural resource stocks, and I will personally rank them 1 to 10, 1 being best, 10 being worst. I'll comment on individual issues if I think my comments might have value. It's absolutely free. Ruleinvestmentmedia.com, list your natural resource stocks. I personally will rank them, and I will send you information about the conference.
You have no idea what that means, because when I was first up in Vancouver years ago looking at gold mines, that's what everybody says. You must be the biggest liar of all, because there's no stock exchange worse than Vancouver. And I was cruising around up there. They said, "Are you a crook?" And I went, "No, no, no, no." But it's such a lot of bullshit, if you know what I mean. Lot
Agreed.
of lie, a lot of things. So when is your conference? And thanks for offering that service of evaluating stocks.
The next conference is the second week of July, 2026. I should mention that if you go to rulesymposium.com, the recordings of this year's conference are for sale. You can use the recordings for the rest of the year. Absolute money back guarantee. Play it. Don't think I gave you your money's worth. No problem. I'll give you your money back.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, my friend Rick, appreciate it. Like I said, everybody wants you to know this. Rick is so respected in the industry, stacked with liars. So that's the highest compliment I can give you. If you can stand out amongst all the other characters, you're doing a good job. So
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for being part of the Rich Dad Radio Show.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we come back with the final word. Again, Rick Rule, thanks very much. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. I want to thank Rick Rule, and please go to his website. His offer to evaluate, especially mining stocks, is priceless, because as we talked about, it first goes gold, and gold's already moved, then silver, and then mining stocks. But mining stocks are probably the highest risk of, just because mining stocks, the expenses are so high and the risk is so high, but the rewards are huge. So anyway, I want to thank Rick Rule for that. And just remind you, the reason Rich Dad was formed was because if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there were 3 rules my Rich Dad had. Was that number 1 was that savers were losers. And the reason they're losers is because they save US dollars. And the other one was your houses. The rich don't work for money. They work for assets, because money is trash. And the third is that your house is not an asset. And those 3 rules from my Rich Dad have kept me sane. And as I said, I just bought my last house, and it was $4.5 million, but I paid for it with gold, and the gold only cost me $450,000. So when you save cash, real estate gets more expensive. When you save gold or silver or Bitcoin, houses get less expensive. And the final word is this: every time you print fake money, the rich get richer and the poor and middle class get poor, because the rich invest in assets, but the poor and middle class, their milk, egg, and cheese gets more expensive, as well as their housing. So that's the problem with fake money. Once again, thank you to Rick Rule. Please check out his Symposium. And thank you for being fans of the Rich Dad Radio Show. See you next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.